Hey everybody, and thanks for watching another episode of Straight Jacket White Rabbit. As usual, my name's Adam and I'll be your host today. You guys, I want to tackle on this episode one of the biggest conspiracies I think I've ever done on this channel. It goes all the way back to April 30th, 1945. For those of you who don't know history very well, April 30th, 1945 is the day that Adolf Hitler supposedly took his life along with Eva Braun, his wife, in the Führer bunker in Berlin, leading to the end of the war, very shortly after. Now, according to historical consensus, you guys, Adolf Hitler died by committing suicide by gunshot April 30th, 1945. Now, they say that his wife, Eva, died by a cyanide capsule, the same thing. But what evidence do we really have? What evidence is there of this? Because shortly after the end of the war, the Soviets, Stalin, actually was overheard by numerous high-ranking political officials saying that he believes Adolf Hitler escaped. However, his same government are the people who were telling us that they had the bone fragments, and now, years and years and years later, the identified dental records and jawbone of Hitler. Now, I'm not saying that they don't have something similar to what they're claiming that they have. If they have this, I believe that it was a simple forgery, you guys. Let me explain. Hitler was known to have many lookalikes. Okay, he literally made copies of himself. He had people cut their hair, gain weight, lose weight. There are reports that he had people undergo surgery to look more like him. So is it really out of the realm of possibility that he faked dental records? The dental records that everyone keeps saying, that they have and stuff of Hitler's were actually found in one of his bunkers. But the problem is there were lots of faked documents in Nazi-occupied Germany, especially towards the end of the war. We know this to be fact. We know that there are documents that we've proven were false, that we have found. But they looked official, and they were, officially printed, I guess, by the Nazis. So these documents that were supposed disinformation were found all over Nazi-occupied Germany. Why is it they couldn't have faked a dental record and left it around or left it behind on purpose? Probably to cover Hitler's escape. Now, while there are some witnesses who went on to testify that they were present when they saw Adolf Hitler's body and Eva Braun's body brought out to the courtyard and burned after their suicide. However, there are also witnesses who claim that the real Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun were spirited away in a black car towards the closest sea base where the U-boats were standing by. And that Hitler took one of these U-boats and went to wherever he went to. Now, there are several places people have said that they've seen Adolf Hitler through various reports we've gathered through declassified FBI documents and CIA documents. We know that numerous reports were put in by people in South America, specifically Brazil and Argentina. Argentina has the largest of these reported sightings of Adolf Hitler after his supposed death. So, why Argentina? Well, you have to remember, you guys, Argentina was extremely German-friendly during most of the war. In fact, Argentina didn't actually join the Allies until just weeks before the war was over. So is it possible that Hitler could have taken his U-boat to South America and lived somewhere in Argentina or Brazil or somewhere else in South America? I think it's entirely possible. Look at how many Nazis we captured in South America, you guys. Now, there have been Nazis we've captured all around the world. I'm not saying there's not, okay? Recently, there's been a few here in the U.S. that were deported. Okay? But Adolf Eichmann, who's the SS officer, some people call him the architect of the Holocaust. He escaped to Argentina in 1950, you guys, but he was captured by Mossad in Buenos Aires in 1960. He was executed in Israel in 1962. If some high-ranking Nazis like Adolf Eichmann, Klaus Barbie, who's known as the Butcher of Lyon, who also fled to South America, Bolivia, in fact, he was arrested and extradited back to France in, I believe it was 1982 or 1983. I believe it was 1983. Klaus Barbie, I mean, this is the Butcher of Lyon. He's a very high up Nazi. Franz Strengel, Joseph Schwarzenberger, who is another SS officer, who was found in Argentina. Now, he lived openly then, but went into hiding. He was being looked for and he knew it. But they still didn't find and arrest him until 1987, you guys. 1987. Okay? So this is not out of the realm of possibility that this man could have faked his death and lived until he died of old age or disease or whatever he died of. Now, one of the main reasons, you guys, that I don't believe that Adolf Hitler died the way that we were all told is because of the simple fact that the people who found his remains, okay, the Soviets, the Russians, they claimed to have been the ones to find his remains. Yet, one set of remains that were tested, that were supposedly his, was actually female when tested for DNA samples. And as far as the dental records go, like I said, who's to say these weren't the dental records of one of his doubles? This man had dozens of them. He had dozens of lookalikes, some which he actually used. There's footage of him using these people during famous speeches. It's not actually Hitler. There's a famous photo online of a man with a gunshot wound to his head that looks like Hitler. It's not. It's one of his doubles. We now know this. But we're talking about a man whose face was known around the world at this point. Could he really have gotten away? The answer is yes, he could have. Do you know how easy it is to disappear in a sea of millions and billions of people? Especially when you have the money, means, opportunity, and motive to do so. Hitler's SS had been plundering Europe, you guys, for years. Artworks, gold, silver, jewels, money, you name it, they took it. We still, to this day, have probably only recovered roughly a third of the Nazi fortunes stolen from other countries and peoples. Now, a lot of people tried to say, who are naysayers, oh, well, it would take a darn near genius to be able to get away with it for this long. That's not necessarily true. As I just stated, a lot of high-ranking Nazi soldiers were able to use these rat lines that they had to escape Nazi Germany and, in fact, go all over the world, from Spain to France to South America. Some people even say the Arctic. So if the average, commandant of the Nazi regime could escape, why wouldn't Hitler be able to? Hitler's IQ was well known to be above average. He was not a genius technically, but he was just under. He was a very smart man. And I know it's not nice to give these horrible friggin' people compliments, but let's be historically honest. If Hitler had made slightly, and I mean slightly different choices, we'd all be speaking German. He messed up in one key regard by attacking the allies of countries that were not yet in the war, like America. Had he gone other routes and taken over other parts and other countries first, we may all very well have been speaking German. He could have had the biggest empires since the Romans, since Genghis Khan and his people took over. Now, I'm not trying to glorify this man. I'm trying to get you to understand that he was not a fool. He had plans in place for many different occurrences, including his death, faking his death, he had numerous different plans in place for all types of different scenarios. So who's to say that he didn't see the end of the war coming and decide to get out while he could? Other rats were already leaving the sinking ship. High-ranking Nazi officers were leaving the country left and right and being helped by the Red Cross. You guys, when I first learned about this back when I was in high school, I couldn't believe that this happened. But I looked it up and I've looked into it, and it is 100% true. Now, to the Red Cross's credit, they claim that they did not know that they were giving these people new identities and things, but they were giving Nazis new identities, names, travel to different places to be relocated, which is another reason why, you guys, I think this was a setup by America to just end the war. You have to understand, the Nazis were extremists to the truest sense of the word. And short of the death of Adolf Hitler and the crumbling of his empire, they weren't going to give up. Yes, they were beaten. Yes, they were beaten bad, and they were still losing when Hitler supposedly committed suicide. But the fact of the matter is there were so many extremists willing to follow Adolf Hitler as long as he was still alive that the war couldn't have ended without his death. This is why I believe, in connection with our country and a few others, that Adolf Hitler was spirited away out of Nazi-occupied Germany and to either, like I said, South America, Antarctica, or another country. I do tend to believe the South America one, and I'll get into that here in a minute, why. But we know that there were U-boats that left Nazi-occupied Germany and arrived right off the coast of Argentina, as well as other places in South America. But there are actually sunken Nazi U-boats right off the coast of Argentina. Were they scuttled on purpose? Some of them don't appear to have any direct damage from, explosions or anything like that. They just seem to have been sank. So were these ships intentionally sunk after they, offloaded their passengers? Think about it. If we know that people like the Butcher of Lyon and the architect of the Holocaust came to Argentina, which was a very German-friendly place at the time, is it not possible that their leader came with them? I think it is. And I think I even know where he was actually located. So, I have this part. I'm sorry, guys. I actually had to take notes on this because I don't know all of it. But I want to get into this for you guys. Okay, there is a place. There's a place in Argentina, you guys, off of this huge lake. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the lake's name because I can't do it. I've tried. But it's called the Inalco House. Inalco, Inalco House. Now, the interesting thing about the Analco house, you guys, is that it was, how can I put this? I'm going to say it this way. The architectural origin of the Analco house, the actual estate itself, was designed by a man named Alejandro Bastilio. Now, he was famous Argentinian state architect who designed many landmark buildings in nearby Bariloche. It was drawn up to have specific similarities to the Berghof, which was Adolf Hitler's home in the German mountains. It looks a lot like it, you guys. It has very similar features to this. Now, the layout, winding corridors, hidden angles, sequences of where the bedrooms are located, all of this stuff is really kind of odd. It's set up almost the same way that Hitler's home was. Now, if this wasn't enough, the Analco house sits on an empty shoreline on this giant lake, and with the one way in that you can come from boat to get to this house, people have found odd concrete structures that they've documented now. What they look like, you guys, is pillboxes. Old German machine gun nests. Concrete reinforced steel pillboxes, basically. Now, why, if this house wasn't connected to Adolf Hitler, would there need to be such defenses on the channel sides before you get to the Analco house? There's no plans drawn up for these. There's no actual evidence of them ever being built, but they're there. So what were they built for? Who were they protecting? Strategically, it makes perfect sense that they were guarding the Analco house. Now, skeptics will say there's no proof at all that Adolf Hitler lived here. There's no proof of any of that. But up until recently, they would have been right. No proof of any kind existed up until about, I'd say, 6 to 8 years ago, when up at the Analco house, investigators found several artifacts, including a coin from Nazi Germany, emblazoned with the symbolic Nazi swastika. These coins are completely 100% unmistakably German. So are the other items they found. So, if there's no known history of Nazi occupation or ownership of the Analco house, why were they there? Why were these Nazi artifacts on this stretch of coast, a football field wide, where this house is located? There's nothing else there but the Analco house. There's literally nothing else there. So it seems to me that these coins and other items they found of Nazi origin had to have been brought there by a Nazi. And considering the fact that Argentina was flooded with high-ranking Nazi officials, is it really that hard to believe? Nearby Bariloche had shipments of Nazi gold, art, and artifacts that were known to have been shipped into the area, along with, like I said, the Nazi personnel that we've discovered that have lived in Bariloche and all around Argentina. This would have taken planning. It would have taken someone who was giving orders, someone in charge. Now, by all accounts, the other Nazis were trying to vanish. So who could it have been? some of the Nazis down in South America were actually working as management in Mercedes-Benz factories, started from mechanics and worked their way up. These are decades-long searches that we had for these people. We still haven't found them all. I want to read you something real quick that I took a note on here. Okay? There are a lot of high-ranking Nazis that escaped justice immediately after World War II via those rat lines I was talking about. However, the last known cases in the United States were Yakov Pali, who was a former Nazi concentration camp guard in America, living in Queens, New York. They were deported to Germany August 2018, you guys. He died in 2019 at age 95. In 2021, the United States removed a 95-year-old Frederick Karl Berger, who served as an armed guard at a concentration camp, to Germany. We're still finding these people in their 90s. Now, do I believe Adolf Hitler's still alive? No. He had too many ailments, too many physical restrictions, and too much physically wrong with him. I do believe he survived for some time, but I do not believe he's still around. But I do not at all, beyond a shadow of a doubt, believe that he died in Germany. I believe that he either died in his Arctic base or he died in South America, more than likely in Argentina. Now, like I said, you guys, there's been a lot of these Nazis caught over the years, and we're still catching them. So why, if we have these countries saying, oh no, Hitler was dead, we saw his body, or we have parts of his jawbone, or all this stuff, why do these rumors persist for years after the war ended? I'm talking 20, 30 years, and to this day, to be quite honest. But very prevalently, for about 20 years after the war, people were seeing Adolf Hitler. Numerous reports. Not all of them credible, but a lot of them were. Our own government, okay? We have records of Hoover asking the CIA why he's hearing rumors that Adolf Hitler escaped to South America, and is there any validity to these facts? These are declassified documents. Our own CIA and FBI were looking for over a decade that they admitted to. I think it was way longer than that because, like I said, we're still finding them. You don't find people you're not looking for. Now, while they can say, well, maybe we weren't specifically looking for Hitler, they're just looking for Nazis. Hitler is Nazis, okay? It doesn't get more Nazi than Hitler. So if you're looking for them, if there's even a fraction of a chance he lived, you're looking for him too. So did he really live out his days outside of Bariloche on a lake in a very large estate that mirrored his own Berghof back in Germany? One of the other reasons I think it's entirely possible, you guys, is the amount of artifacts with direct lines to Adolf Hitler himself that have been found in Argentina and the surrounding South American areas, you guys. One of the largest busts of Nazi artifacts ever found outside of Germany was in Argentina, you guys. They found numerous objects, including a Ouija board with the commands for invade or destroy on it, including Hitler's own personal magnifying case and magnifying glasses that came with it, along with the photo inside that shows him using said magnifying glasses. So we know some of Hitler's personal possessions made it to South America, Once again, is it that hard to believe that the man himself did? There are witnesses who say that he left the area in a black car with his woman, drove to the pier, and got on a U-boat. There are numerous witnesses in South America, Argentina area, that claim to have seen Adolf Hitler in person themselves, just walking through town. Now, most of the time, he would have had to stay at this giant house in Alco because there were so many people looking for him for decades after the war. The Israeli Secret Service, the Mossad, United States Central Intelligence Agency, FBI, the French Special Police, Special Forces from Britain, all of these groups have looked for Hitler over the years. Hell, we've had TV shows with investigators trying to search for Hitler. And they've found some pretty compelling evidence that somebody believed Hitler was there. Now, let's explore for a minute the possibility that maybe Hitler didn't go to South America. Maybe he went to the Arctic. Maybe South America was just a pit stop. Now, a lot of people say, well, there's nothing for him in Antarctica, but that's not true. The Nazis talked about making bases in Antarctica a lot. Now, while the Americans claim that the only bases they made were whaling stations and scientific weather stations and things like this, you have to remember, at the time, you guys, the Nazis were the best tunnel developers in the open world. We are still finding tunnel systems that they created, elaborate, deep tunnel systems that they created way back then. That are things that were, quite frankly, we weren't able to do then. We just weren't. We weren't technologically there. So is it possible that the Nazis made an underground base? I mean, you wouldn't really want to make a base above ground in Antarctica because it's too freaking cold. There's nothing. Antarctica is a lot of things, you guys, but mostly it is cold and it is windy. Now, regardless of what you believe is beyond the ice wall down in Antarctica, a lot of people believe that there was a base constructed in Antarctica using the methods of drilling and tunnel systems. This is what Nazis were famous for, you guys. Most of their bases had these systems of deep, intricate tunnels. So why not just make a military base underground that you could, command your next Reich from? I do believe, like I said, that Hitler died before today. I do believe he had too many ailments to have lived this long. But I do not believe that he died in Germany. And as I've explained, there were dozens and dozens and dozens, literally hundreds, you guys, of Nazis that escaped the war. And even if you're talking about, oh, well, those were like prison guards from places or, no-nonsense SS officers that nobody knew their names of. Even if you get rid of all of those, I'm talking about the high-ranking officials, you guys. Okay? I mean, Joseph Mengele escaped till his death. How does that man escape? That's, in my opinion, just as bad or almost as bad as Hitler escaping. But he did. So if it's possible for him, why wouldn't it be possible for Hitler? To be completely honest, how do we know that any of the things the Soviets are giving us are true? Who would look the worst if it turned out that they didn't have Hitler's remains? It would be them. They're the ones that claim they found the bodies. They're the ones who once have already been debunked because the skeletal remains proved to be female. Now they have a jaw or a fragment of the jaw that matches supposed dental records of Hitler's. So, of course they tell us that, yeah, no, we tested it. It's, it's definitely his. Number one, they couldn't possibly know that because this man was fargan smart. Okay, he was smart enough to freaking make some dental records. He was mean enough and clever enough to actually make somebody else get dental work done to match his. There's a lot of different things he could have done to falsify those records and leave them around for people to find. So are we really taking it on the words of a document or a witness or two to let us know that the most evil, vile man that has ever stepped foot on this earth is actually gone? I don't think we are. Because as much as our governments and governments around the world decry Hitler died, he was dead, he's long buried and gone, we were all looking for him for almost 20 some odd years. Some of us still are looking for him privately, I believe. Or at least looking for what happened to him. As I said earlier, you guys, in freaking 2021, we removed a 95-year-old man from the United States because he worked at one of the Nazi concentration camps. So, if in 2021 we could still be finding these people, you can't tell me that it isn't possible that he got away. Was the whole world scammed into believing that the architect of this evil axis perished? Was it the truth? Or was the fact that he lied, was the fact that he died simply a lie to cover up an inconvenient fact, which is we needed him dead to end the war. He knew he was losing. Did we make a deal? Did we let him escape? Now, while some people say we wouldn't have made a deal with Hitler, yeah, a lot of people thought that about the scientists. Look at Operation Paperclip and other operations from different countries. We all excuse the behavior of Nazis based on their knowledge, based on their wealth. There were Nazis who will never, ever see justice at this point because they're now dead, because of the fact that they were smart or rich. Look at one of the founding members of NASA. Nazi. We took their scientists and said, you know what? All's forgiven if you work for us. Now, I'm not saying Adolf Hitler went to work for anybody. I don't believe for a minute he's that type of person to take orders from us. But I think it's entirely plausible that this man escaped. Now, do I know for sure that this man got out and lived to be older or whatever? No. Nobody does. That's the point of a good conspiracy, you guys. But there's so many holes in the story that once you start going down this rabbit hole with me, you guys, it's really hard to stop finding new little threads to pull at. Like I said, we have personal possessions of his found in South America. We have eyewitnesses and sworn testimonies of people who claim to have not only seen but been in the actual presence of Adolf Hitler in South America. We have communiques from different intelligence agencies around the world saying that they believe he's in South America. So, I mean, what do you guys think? Did one of the worst people in history actually get away with it? Did he get out of Nazi Germany and end his life peacefully sitting on the shores of a lake in Argentina in the Analco house? Personally, I like the other theory better. If he didn't die, I'd rather him be in Antarctica, because at least to me that seems really unpopular and just cold and miserable. But I mean, if I had it my way, he'd be dead, and that would be the official real story. But there's, like I said, there's too many holes, you guys. These people were passing off remains of his for decades that turned out to be a woman until they got caught. And then it was magically, oh, look, yeah, but we have these. They're his. Look, we matched dental records. Where did all that even come from? And if they had it before then why didn't they know that the other skull was fake and not his? I mean, not that the skull was fake, it was of a woman, but I mean, fake as in it wasn't Adolf Hitler. A simple DNA swab could have told you this information. Now, you guys, like I said, I hope he's dead by now, and I would assume he would be. I think he'd be like 105 by now or something like that. But I really hope he didn't get to live a long life after the war. Because something inside of me would kind of die a little bit if we knew that for sure. Men of great evil are not meant to be able to live in this world and survive without facing the consequences of their actions. And when they do, someone of that evil, someone of that pure hatred for his fellow man, well, some of his fellow man, they shouldn't be able to get away with it. But this isn't a storybook. There is no fairy tale ending. And the fact of the matter is, whether you like it or not, there's a chance that Hitler could have survived. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. As always, I appreciate and love each and every one of you guys. Thank you so much for everyone for your support and your love. Any contributions you've made to my channel, even just showing up and watching my channel. Thank you all so much. It's honestly really heartwarming, and it makes me feel really good about what I do. And I just want to say real quick that my brother, Jay Dreamer's been a huge influence, and I appreciate all his help in this as well. It's been a minute since I brought him up. But you guys, let me know what you think about this. Did Hitler get away? Were we just being bamboozled with these fake remains? Or was he really dead? Did he commit suicide and his wife commit suicide in the Führer bunker in Germany? You guys, until next time, this has been Straight Jacket White Rabbit telling you guys to love each other, look out for each other, and keep your eyes out. There's still Nazis out there. We're still hunting them down. And it won't be over till they've all been caught. Good night.